It's time for all your binge-worthy pop culture news. Welcome to Up and Adam.
Oh, sorry, the mute. Hey guys, welcome back, and thank you again so much. I wanted to say thank you guys for joining me for my new morning show, but also I know you guys always ask me about Ronald Richards, and you say, where's Ronald? Why hasn't he been back on? Well, guys, he's a power attorney. The man works. So when we can get him and get a few moments of his time, we always appreciate it. So we are back with him today to cover some of our favorite Bravo celebrities in some of their kind of ridiculous legal situations. But before we jump in, if you haven't already, go ahead, smash that like button. If you're not subscribed, get subscribed. And don't forget to hit that notification bell because, well, you don't want to miss anything we have coming up. With that, let's welcome Ronald Richards. Hey, Ronald, how are you?
Hey, Adam, how are you doing?
Good. It's nice to see you on camera.
New year, less regulations, and I got court this morning, so I have my lawyer outfit on.
Hey, we're here for it. You look dapper and we're ready to go.
Thank you.
All right. So, Ronald, I know that you've been covering a few of, the Real Housewives of Orange County, kind of like what's been going on with them. You've said it since day one, and it stuck with me. So I want to start with Noella Bergner here, or Bergner. I didn't even realize that's how you pronounce her last name until she was just on Watch What Happens Live. But Noella Bergner is going through this divorce that is coming off pretty shady to a lot of people. And like you pointed out on Twitter, she filed for legal separation in the state of California, where Sweet James practices law, and then he filed for divorce in Puerto Rico. Now, I don't know if you've been following it, but they've been posting videos kind of chiming in back and forth, slamming each other, and she's calling this a fraudulent divorce. Do you have an update on this?
Yeah, this is sort of a complicated procedural issue, but I'm going to make it really simple and break it down for everybody.
Perfect.
James Bergner has a trademark called Sweet James, and basically over the years he's partnered up with other lawyers that helped him finance this brand, and he decided to go to Puerto Rico at some point last year, and while he was in Puerto Rico, things started diverting with him and Noella, and she went back to California, and they both raced to the courthouse to see who could file their divorce first. And I think he sort of manipulated her into going to Puerto Rico, knowing that it would be much faster to get a divorce. That's just my opinion based on looking at all the evidence. And so he actually got a divorce in Puerto Rico, and he's divorced. Noella, meanwhile, first filed for legal separation, then converted it, which we posted at Ronald Richards, the petition, but it never was served. And so now you have these two competing courts that are jockeying for position over the estate. But I think the Puerto Rico court is going to hold on to this because they were at least there, according to James and the evidence, for 6 months.
Okay, so at first I heard that you had to be there for at least a year in order to file for divorce, but it's 6 months.
Well, every state has their own nuances, but generally the rule of thumb, and that's the rule in California, is 180 days. And the jurisdiction over this estate, I mean, honestly, this is a short marriage. I don't know why she's beating this to death either. I mean, she's not going to get millions and millions of dollars of assets for a one-year marriage. She said she's appealed the Puerto Rico divorce judgment, but there's literally no transparency in their docket, so you can't tell who's telling the truth. And then, as you pointed out, they had this Twitter feud where he's not going to say anything bad about her, but he really does. And then she's posting these responses. I mean, when you see people posting their legal cases on Instagram, you know there's some sort of scripted TV stuff going on, because that's not normal.
Right. Well, I do have a question for you, but first I want to let Cece ask her question. And guys, by the way, in the live chat, again, don't forget to smash that like button. But if you have a question for Ronald, then just put a Q in front of it, and then I'll try to bring up as many questions as possible. We have him for about 45 minutes today, so we're super lucky. I will make sure to ask all the questions that you have.
But Adam, what if I don't know the answer? Do I have to look at notes? Didn't we write out all the questions beforehand? No, I'm kidding. Everyone knows that's a joke. Okay.
I mean, listen, I get that all the time. You always give Ronald Richards a list of questions before you come on. I'm like, no, I really don't. I just give you the topic and then we come on and we wing it.
Exactly.
So, but Cece said, is the Puerto Rico divorce considered final?
It's technically final in the trial court, but allegedly there's been an appeal. So until that appeal's ruled on, it's not final, but it's final for the parties. So I don't think that divorce is going to get overturned by a Puerto Rican appellate court.
Okay. And then Noella did go on when she was fact checking him, and, you know, they were going back and forth, like you said, in a Twitter feud and on Instagram, which looks kind of sloppy, but she did say this, I'm filing to call this a fraudulent divorce because my husband, the only way he was allowed to file for divorce in Puerto Rico was if he was able to confirm that I committed infidelity in Puerto Rico. And now apparently James put this in the documents that Noella cheated on him while they lived together in Puerto Rico. And that is why he was allowed to get the divorce. Now, Noella's saying that never happened. I never cheated on him. He has no proof. Actually, in fact, he was the one who cheated on me. So she's saying this whole thing, this whole divorce is a sham and a fraud. Could that play in her favor?
I mean, it wouldn't play in her favor in California because the adultery and cheating has no legal effect. People commit adultery and cheat all the time. It's not a legal standard we use in California. But I will tell you that both of them were prolific spenders. He does not own that company by himself. He's had numerous partnership disputes over the years and settled with each and every partner. And then, as you know, he has all those tax liens. So he's not this rich guy that everyone may think he is. And she is living in a house that the lease expired where they did the filming for the show. And it's questionable whether she's even tendering rent any longer or what the status is. I mean, there's literally no status. And she keeps saying she wants him to sign the papers, but I don't think he has an ability to fund any divorce with her. I mean, that she would want to accept.
You know, and well, I'll bring up this question first. Joe Mendoza said, question, I thought Noella said everything is pretty much done until both of them sign. What else needs to be signed? I thought I heard NDA, but that sounds confusing.
Well, I think that there may be a divorce settlement where he would have to pay her money. If he doesn't have the money to pay her, then there's no point in signing the settlement. I think that's the issue there. But he's been legally divorced. Maybe they've reserved the property distribution. But again, it's been a year marriage. The only thing that James does have to pay for the rest of the child's life until the child's an adult, both kids, is obviously child support.
Right. And she did put out there, and listen, I never will understand somebody putting out their business to this extent, but she put out there, she's like, originally we agreed that there would be some payments. I would get about $2 million out of the settlement. And those were the terms that we agreed to originally, but he has kind of recanted on the terms and decided, nope, that's not what we're doing. And I feel like this is just about to get messier and messier. You know, I actually talked to James Bergner myself, and he said, I asked him, I said, do you want to come on for an interview? And he was like, yeah, I would love to, but I want to first make sure that this is all settled and I want to worry about my kids first. I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, he's the only lawyer I know that doesn't want to answer questions live. I mean, that's a little spooky. If you know, it's easy to put up an Instagram reel so you're talking to yourself. It's like a prosecutor going to a grand jury and getting an indictment. They'll indict a ham sandwich. I mean, in this particular case, James is putting out his position, but he doesn't want to answer any of the tough questions like, where is the LLP registered? Why can't anybody ever find it? I mean, I know it's there. There's just no transparency with him, and he's not a very good public speaker, in my opinion. But I do believe, James, that there is two sides of the story, and I do sort of believe some of the things he said. And I think Noella has capitalized on the fact that she has a platform to make him look like the worst guy in the world, when I probably think it's somewhere in the middle. I actually did listen to his Instagrams carefully. He does have some points. And the bottom line is, I want to warn everybody, if you move with your spouse to a different state. Now, people are so funny, Adam. They kept saying, how did they get a visa for Puerto Rico? Puerto Rico's a U.S. territory. You don't need a visa. It's like going to Nevada. So if you move with your spouse to another state, even if it's because it's a vacation home or whatever, and you're there over 180 days, and one of you files for divorce, that court may likely assert jurisdiction over the party. So you need to recognize that issue if someone says, hey, let's move to a different state. That does change your status for dissolution purposes.
Okay. And I have another question too. We know that he was hit with about $6 million in unpaid taxes, correct?
That's correct. And by the way, if it was hit when they were married, he may tell Noella, look, you owe half of that, so that's why I'm not giving you the $2 million. I mean, that's what I would do.
So do we know, because wouldn't the information be released if he did make good on the $6 million that he owes?
100%. I checked the Orange County grantor grantee index weekly, and I've seen no IRS releases. And I'm sure if he paid those taxes, he would post the releases. Okay,
so then it makes me question, I want to ask you, because I'm sure you've had a ton of different cases. Noella listed out their assets and said, we have a $14 million home in Puerto Rico, which is insane. She's like, we have an $8 million private jet. And she starts listing out all these things. And she's like, I don't understand. Why doesn't he just sell one of our assets in order to pay this off and make it go away? I mean, most people would do that.
I know, but I read the lawsuit between him and his former partner, who ended up going to Nevada and starting a new PI firm. I won't plug it, but it's in Nevada. And actually, they've been helpful to my office in digesting some of this stuff. But I will tell you, she doesn't understand their assets. That was a corporate jet. It wasn't James's jet. These things are typically leased. There's fractional ownership. I mean, look, you know, Adam, the Orange County Housewives are the most financially challenged I've ever seen in the franchise. I mean, all of them have issues, in my opinion, except for maybe one or two.
We don't know anything on the DeBros, do we?
I haven't done a dive on them yet because I've been so overwhelmed by Noelle and Dr. Jennifer that you know, it takes so much time to get all these documents. And I like to go where the followers and the people like. When they want me to dive onto something else, we do, but we only have bandwidth for one at a time, so we get a full scope. And right now there's so much to look at that I'm just knocking each one out.
Got it. All right, guys. Well, we're less than 15 minutes in and have already over 400 people in the room. So go ahead, smash that like button, show some love. And I want to bring up this next person because we're on the topic of Orange County, so it makes sense. Dr. Jen Armstrong. Now, there's been a lot of stuff coming out, and I did even see one of your tweets. And on your tweet, you wrote, Advanced Skincare Med Center in Newport Beach, California, received a PPP loan of $359,132 in March of 2021. Dr. Jennifer A. Armstrong, hashtag RHOC, jobs, 10 industry, offices of physicians. We are sure that these will be reviewed in litigation. Now, when you're saying the PPP loans, we've heard before that a lot of businesses were very fraudulent with doing this whole PPP loan situation. Is that what you're kind of alluding to with this tweet? Like something's not adding up?
No, what I'm alluding to by posting the PPP loan is it's just a constant theme. As you know, Girardi and Keese had PPP loans. What I'm posting is all these businesses that claim, and these people on these shows that claim they have large amounts of money, but yet they're getting free government handouts. It just is inconsistent. And it just didn't surprise me that she didn't pay her Amex bill, but then she gets a PPP loan right afterward, and then all of a sudden her Amex bill is paid. You know, she defaulted to Amex for $130,000. Where did the money come from? I mean, I don't want to be paying her Amex bill, Adam. That's really the issue. It's like I see people in debt, and then they get a PPP loan, and then all of a sudden they have money. That's not what they're supposed to be used for. I have no proof. I'm just saying that it's odd that someone that's so successful is defaulting on their credit cards. I mean, I mean, you have a credit card. If you don't pay it, your credit gets ruined. And to get to the level of getting sued, I mean, come on.
Okay, fair. I'm going to go ahead and share the screen really quick and bring up your Twitter, because there were a few other tweets that I just want to address really quick.
Okay, because I think I have tweeted before, so this is not something I haven't seen.
Ronald Richards, you have been an avid tweeter, my friend.
All right, let me take a look here.
All right. Previously, we profiled a complaint against Dr. Jennifer A. Armstrong on hashtag RHOC. Consistent with Bravo's casting financially challenged non-scripted talent, we pulled an Amex complaint detailing over $131,000 in credit card defaults. The case settled, but at what cost to her credit? Now, you were talking about this, but there was another one, I think it was right above it, where you're talking about a dismissed complaint. Was this also? Yeah, with Jennifer Armstrong. Here's the copy of the now dismissed complaint. This will become relevant when we post her new lawsuits against her former employees, who many are calling whistleblowers. And then finally, here is another malpractice complaint recently amended by Judy Heck. It makes similar allegations to the complaint filed by Terry Litzgow. We will post Dr. Armstrong's new lawsuits to silence her former employees next. Okay. So she's trying to stop her employees from going out and talking about her business and talking about these lawsuits. Is that what I'm getting?
Yeah, she's suing Sylvia Nuttall and Chris Lee. Look, everyone knows, I've been a practicing lawyer almost 30 years. When you have two malpractice lawsuits against you, you're suing your employees because they basically made statements about how you operate your office. There's something wrong, Adam. That's not how you run a professional practice. Okay, there's an expression: when there's smoke, there's fire. I've never sued an employee to stop them from saying anything about my law firm. If you think about it, employees are allowed to leave. They leave all the time. If a client wants to hire a lawyer that worked for you or somebody else, good for the client. You don't own them. You should have confidence in what you're doing. And these people are being sued because they basically publicly outed her, and she doesn't like it. And when you start suing employees, that's a whole different ball game. Now, of course, it could be justified. I'm not trying the case. But then we have the two malpractice lawsuits for similar allegations. And that's, again, an interesting anomaly that we have this going on. And then she's trying to stop the information from coming out on one side, and she's getting sued by patients on the other. She's not paying Amex, which for a doctor, that's shocking, that you're going to let your credit get ruined. And you're borrowing money from the government, asking for forgiveness because theoretically COVID shut down your practice. So these are the facts. They'll play out, obviously, but that's atypical. Then you're on the Orange County Housewives, sending out a public persona that you're loaded, and this is why you're being called out.
There was something that came out that said Dr. Jen Armstrong settled one of her lawsuits after finding out that she was coming onto the show, and that she was hoping that wouldn't be mentioned on the show. But at this point, like you said, two malpractice lawsuits and then two lawsuits with former employees. She's in over her head with 4 different lawsuits at this point, correct?
She has more than Erika Girardi. So, I mean, she has, by the way, what's so funny? There's something, a lawyer that I posted about yesterday, we discussed this. There's something called the Barbara Streisand effect. She sued, this is before your time, Adam. She sued a bunch of paparazzi for flying over her house in a helicopter, and no one even knew about it. But when she filed the lawsuit, all of a sudden everybody wanted to fly over her house. Okay, it became like the house became posted everywhere. This is the same thing. By suing to shut these people up, now she's made this like a sensational story. And now people are wondering, why is she trying to stop them from talking about the inner workings of her office and whether she was using the correct personnel? I mean, this is stuff that is now a matter of public interest. And then she's on a show where she's clearly a public figure. I mean, it's odd that there's no congruity in the plan here.
Jeez. Okay. JP said, question, what type of malpractice?
Medical malpractice.
medical malpractice.
Yeah, the lawsuits are on my page. You can read them. We posted them up. The entire complaints are on there for both Hecht and the other lady that's suing her.
Okay. So for Dr. Jen Armstrong, you know, I feel like you get this question all the time, and I get this question a lot, especially when you join me and we do these live feeds. And one of the questions is, why do these people go on reality TV when they have all of this hanging over their head? And honestly, I don't even think you could probably be the best lawyer in the world, and I don't think you'd be able to answer that unless you have an answer, and I'm just crazy.
Well, I can't tell you why everybody wants to go on reality TV, but I could tell you that they don't appreciate their financial colonoscopy they're going to get by you and others in the public when they go on these shows. I don't think they realize the amount of Twitter and IG detectives there are out there. I don't think they realize the zeal of the fan base that actually starts to look at everything. But I think they go on the show because they get a misdirected self-image of themselves that this is where the crescendo of their life that they want to be on these shows. I mean, and I'm not going to out some of the friends, but I mean, some of these friends, we have relationships with their ex-husbands and they've lost their homes in foreclosure. I mean, it's crazy the amount of financial challenged people that go on these shows and the friends that go on and they want to put their name on TV. And it makes no sense to me with all these skeletons sitting in the closet. And the reason why people feel like it's okay to go after them is, look, it's okay to have assets and it's okay not to have assets. But when you go on a show and you pretend you have assets, but you're not paying vendors, you're not paying your credit cards, you're being sued left and right. I think, it's fair game. I mean, people, you can't just say, I'm going to only put out, the good times on the show, where all of us here in the free speech world, we're analyzing what's really going on and talking about it. It gives us a whole level of facts to digest.
Right. All right. So, okay, I'm going to move on from this one because I'm sure there's a lot more information that's going to come out as the time goes with Noella and also Dr. Jen Armstrong. But of course, when we've had you on in the past, we've made some moves here and it's made it into the court documents, our videos, our interviews, our conversations, the Girardi scandal. Now, we haven't talked about Erika Girardi in a long time, and everyone is wanting to know, since you're no longer a part of the case, you decided to remove yourself from the case. Do you know what's going on? Is there an update? Is Erika still being sued for $25 million? Will she make it out of this on her feet? What's going on?
Okay, well, just to clarify, I still have, of course, an active state civil suit against her for a different client. But so there's plenty of information that comes my way, and of course, I have a financial interest in making sure the lawsuit that we filed is successfully prosecuted. So of course, it's still going on. Just to remind everybody, obviously, because she's now in a different lawsuit, she still hasn't even appeared, the one in Chicago. This is going to take, a year before she's even ready to deal with it. So there's going to be all sorts of motions in it. And there was a hearing in Chicago where the judge is analyzing different facts that came out with respect to when he was notified and should have been notified of Girardi not paying the clients in Chicago. And then there was a subpoena issued, an order yesterday in the California case for all of the firm's American Express records, which everybody knows we've posted previously about her use of the Amex cards. And that was how she got most of the firm's money and receivables were charged on those cards, the card that she had issued from Girardi. And
right.
So, like I said, there has been a very quiet stage, and I'm sure everybody misses the fact that I don't tweet about it as much because it's unfortunate because now we're just going to be in a very quiet phase because everybody will be afraid to talk about it and it'll be like any other case. It'll just be nice and quiet. And the only people that suffer, of course, will be the public because they'll just have to wait for things are filed. But I mean, I'm of course on top of everything that occurs in the case. But right now, it's like we're starting over again. There will be a status conference coming up on the $25 million lawsuit, but I'm assuming her lawyers are going to say, let's wait and see what happens with the Chicago action, which we haven't even appeared yet. The judge is taking briefing at the end of the month in that case to see if the former Girardi lawyers have any culpability in not notifying him. I mean, there's just a lot of things. That's why no one's really talking about it. And meanwhile, Erika is on TV taking selfies with the new cast members like nothing's ever happened. And again, I don't want to say anything I predicted, but I'm, putting a note in our calendar. I'll come on, November something, 2022, and we'll go back and say, Adam, what happened the last year? Was I right or was I wrong? I mean, so we'll just see. Like, and again, there were subsequent filings which is clarified. There was just differences in litigation strategy, and I have a lot of cases to process. So I'd like it to settle, but like I said, nothing has happened right now except the judge in Chicago is going to make some decisions after he gets some briefs at the end of the month as to whether he has authority to do certain things. I don't want to bore everybody till the briefs are filed. We can discuss it afterward. Not even that big a deal, really, in my opinion, anymore. And we have the $25 million lawsuit, which she's going to have to get set dates. The judge will set them. We can talk about that if you want after he sets the dates. And we'll see where it goes. She started a new business, but I never was able to source the business. She's got a pay raise from the Real Housewives, which is good, but that money is post-divorce earnings. Girardi's conservator is representing himself in the divorce, which, again, in the history of my legal career, I've never seen a guy steal all this money and then have a conservatorship appointed for him. And he seems to just sort of be floating out there at an old age home and no consequences. I mean, so much needs to be developed that my position on Erika is let's just wait and see what happens and think positively that she's going to do the right thing. She's going to make a decision that helps everybody, and we'll move forward. That's really the only thing we can do right now. It's just too what we call fluid.
Got it. All right, there is a question on here, and I'm not quite sure if you're able to answer it, but I did say, guys, if you have questions, ask them. And it's Joe Mendoza. Question, what are your thoughts on Larry Gabriel replacing you as special counsel and what he has done so far with the case? Still confused on what he is actually doing or will do that you have not done.
Well, the only thing that I could comment on, because there's something called work product, I can't discuss things that I've discussed with Mr. Gabriel or anybody because that's like strategy. And so it's not me not wanting to answer the question, but we don't do that as the lawyers. I can't discuss a strategy. I can tell you that the only thing that we did so far is just make it clear that at the end of the case, the estate will not be affected by switching counsel because the fees will be paid out of my retainer agreement. We'll divvy them up however we want to divvy them up. So it didn't cost the estate any extra money. So that's what's going to happen. With respect to doing something, so far, I think the only thing that will be done is there'll be a status report filed and he'll appear and they'll probably set some dates. My preference as someone that has an interest in the case financially is let's wait and see what happens with the Chicago case so she can make a global business decision. And I'm still verifying that she has no hidden money. That's the other thing I'm working on. I don't expect her to have hidden money. I expect her to say, I make a lot of money off the Housewives and I didn't hide any money. And here's my transparency and let's all get along. That's what I expect to happen. And then there'll be this pressure. Are you going to do anything anyway? Adam, you talked about this, whether she's legally right or wrong, she sort of benefited. Let's take away the legalities for a minute. These victims, that money indirectly was used to finance her career on the Housewives and her singing career. Obviously, it was paid with firm money. And even though Girardi be entitled to a salary from some of that money, it would be dwarfed by the amount of money that was spent every year on her. So I think the pitch is, why not give some of that money back from the salary you're making from the Housewives? Because absent that $25 million expenditure on your career, you would never have the earning potential that you do now. That's sort of the plea. And that's not a legal plea. That's a moral plea. And that's how I would try to hopefully have somebody present that to her, to try to have a global settlement where she says, okay, this is what I'm making. This is what I anticipate making. Here's the percentage I'd like to give back, and just end this.
You know, a lot of people were saying, because she did launch that new business, Pretty Mess Hair, where it's her extension line, $710 clip-in extensions. And, you know, she was excited to put this out there. And now they're saying that the business is already struggling because her account for the business has not gained over, you know, more than 5,000 followers. And she has over 1 million followers on all her social media platforms. People aren't really understanding why. And in my head, I was just thinking, well, it's probably the reason her business might not have taken off the way she wanted it to was probably because how she handled all of this stuff. Because everyone wanted to see her say something on behalf of the victims, have her lawyer write up a statement, just say, you know what, I had nothing to do with this, but I can't believe my husband did this. I want to do whatever I can to make this right. Instead, she was on Instagram and social media posting lingerie photos, and it probably wasn't the best look. So I feel like all of the fans and people who are watching are like, yeah, that's probably why her business launch didn't take off the way she wanted it to, because people are over it.
I mean, is there like a lot of warm, fuzzy feelings for Erika? Like, I don't feel like, I feel like people liked when I was attacking her and calling her out and saying she was tone deaf, but it became not effective because I then started a good relationship with her lawyer, and I just wanted to get some money out of her and settle the case. I mean, because that's really what the job is. But I feel like people may not feel good about giving her money that they don't know is going to go to the victims or to the creditors. And so I think I agree with you. I think that from a marketing standpoint, she's got an uphill battle. However, she's a great non-scripted actress for the Housewives because the demand for watching her is still there. I think that people like to see the story, but again, it's going to get tired of her blaming everybody else for her husband diverting client settlements. I mean, that's going to get old. And I do think she's tone deaf still. I mean, respectfully, I'm not trying to insult her. Why not do something like financially? I mean, you don't need to wait for a settlement. You could say, look, I'm cutting $200,000 to the estate or to a GoFundMe or whatever you want to do to anybody that's been wronged. I mean, like even my law firm, we said any victim of this wants to sit in our seats for the game. We made it a public offer. A postman and his son actually went to the game. He called. We didn't have any victims take it, but a government worker took it and had a great time. And I mean, there's things you can do if you're directly involved with this. I mean, there has to be some responsibility morally. And she doesn't, for whatever reason, doesn't want to do it. I don't think her lawyer said you can't do something nice for people. I mean, that other wives and other spouses have done this. There is a track record for them doing this when they discover innocent spouses, when they discover their spouse has done something morally repugnant. But again, I'm not faulting her. She may think, well, God, if I give 200, when's it going to end? What is my complete financial exposure? I mean, again, that's why I didn't want her to be diverted with all these lawsuits, but that's in the past. I mean, she's going to have to deal with them all now, and we'll see what happens. But I think she just does, knowing her legal history, my prediction is she's just going to fight it till the very end. I just don't see her doing what I would consider the morally right thing because she doesn't need to. I think she's just going to say, look, he did it. I divorced him over it, and I don't feel I have to. I think that, I mean, do you see her from her show? Isn't her show, Adam, don't you agree her show persona is her persona? I mean, she's made so many comments when they do those the side pieces on her, you know, I mean, very aggressive things about like eating. Now, I don't remember, I'm analogizing, she didn't say this, like eating her firstborn, like very funny things she says, like aggressive comments. She seems very aggressive. I don't see Erika like kind of backing down from a fight unless they tell her you're going to lose. And no one could tell her she's going to lose. I mean, the case has, her defenses have some merit, like, okay, so my husband's firm paid all my Amex bills, even though I didn't do anything for it. She has one problem, though. Her entity, EJ Global, is still in default in Chicago, and I think that that's a problem for her. That entity is a pass-through. It's a single-member LLC. It's going to be hard to claim that the entity owes the money, but she doesn't owe the money. I mean, I think she does have problems in the case, but that's why even a risk allocation at 90% in her favor is still $2.5 million. I mean, that she could settle. I mean, that's why she should settle the case, but she may not. You know, I just find she's going to be very mad that she works hard for the Housewives check, and then they want to give it all away to what she blames Tom for. But I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but that's just sort of the woman that I see on TV.
Right. No, it just seems like it's a long uphill battle. And of course, we'll continue to keep our eyes on it, but we do miss the tweets. And like you said, now it's kind of gone quiet for a second, but at least to keep us fueled and kind of get our chops wet a little bit, we still have Jen Shaw in her legal situation. And we're coming up to a very important date. Jen Shaw has less than 2 months before court.
Yes. Now, you guys all saw the Hulu broadcast that I was on. I couldn't talk about it before. There it is. And that was really fun.
Congratulations, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That was fun to do. I had a good time. And there's another one coming up on Joe Francis on HBO that is coming up next shortly. And
these celebrities will keep you busy.
Well, it's because I've represented people that have been involved with them, and so that's why I got called to the show. And we actually taped it at a property that I'm involved with, so it was a great taping. But as far as Jen Shaw, I mean, to just bring everybody up to speed, her last Hail Mary was, she said because of the Hulu, the case should be dismissed because one of the agents was on the show, and that got shut down very quickly because there's no way the jury pool's getting infected in New York. It was a collateral agent. None of the prosecutors were on the show, but it was certainly worth raising with the court. And so she tried to basically get out of it. I live tweeted the Stuart Smith change of plea, even though they never announced him in advance. I mean, the lack of transparency in that courthouse is always, it's unique to that courthouse. I mean, it's very hard to get information live, but I mean, I saw that there was going to be a hearing, and then we were able to source that he was going to actually change his plea. But I mean, she's got so many people testifying against her. I mean, that just so everybody understands, everybody wants to get out of jail and is hoping that Jen Shaw goes to trial. You have to appreciate this, Adam. All the other defendants that have pled since the show, they took very aggressive pleas, meaning they're looking at decades in prison absent the motion for cooperation. So everybody understands that. They're hoping and praying that Jen Shaw goes to trial and they actually get to testify. That's like how it works.
Because they won't get sentenced until after she testifies, right?
Right, and if she decides to change her mind and plea, then the government's going to say, well, all you did is say that you would testify, but you didn't suffer the public scrutiny of having a defense attorney cross-examine you, and you didn't have to go through all that. So maybe we'll give you a little bit of a departure motion, but not like if they testify against her in court. So that's why she's helped all the other defendants in the case by actually going to trial. And like I said, it's not just outsiders that are going to say they dealt with her tangentially. She has her right-hand person, Stuart Smith, that is going to say that he did all these things at her direction. I mean, having your assistant flip on you is the worst possible witness you could ever have against you.
All right. Joe Mendoza came in with another question about her assistant. If you were on Jen Shaw's team, I'm guessing this is for you, how would you help prove that Jen Shaw is not associated associated with any of Stuart Smith's businesses when she said that Stu is her business assistant on season 1, episode 1?
Well, you're gonna have to argue that Stuart has experience in the telemarketing industry, and that the fact that he went and started his own companies with her blessing doesn't mean that she had an illegal agreement with him to commit some sort of telemarketing fraud. I mean, you're going to have to say that the assistant work he did for me on the show was for the show, that this man is not some assistant, like with respect to his aptitude. I mean, of course, there's brilliant assistants. So I want to be clear. You have to say, though, that his role as an assistant was not what this guy is all about. He's actually a sophisticated telemarketing operative, and that his assistant work was so he can get on TV. You're going to have to sort of posit that to the jury, that a grown man at his age did not want to become my assistant, that we only did that for the show. It was a theatrical position. That's how I would articulate it, and try to embrace that he was the assistant, but pigeon him to the show and then say, look, he had these other side businesses. I wasn't involved in that. And that's all she could do. He's going to, of course, say, no, she directed me to do the Wyoming entities. She didn't want to be on it because of the scrutiny. And he's going to say he did everything at her direction.
Right. Well, and we were talking last time we spoke, I believe there were like 2 or 3 people left that could potentially, take a plea deal. And we were waiting to see if they would, if that's going to happen. And now we know a couple of people have. So is there anyone left except for Jen Shaw that has not taken a plea deal?
Well, just her co-defendant, one of the remaining co-defendants.
And there's 13 total, right?
Yeah. So
okay.
he's there. I just think that I think for whatever reason he has a different line of defense, or he has nothing to offer. I mean, sometimes if you're at the top of the pyramid and everybody else is already flipped, you don't really have anything to offer. Some people actually believe that they're going to win. Some people believe they rather hope that there's a juror problem, like you see in the Maxwell trial, where the juror went on TV. Did interviews and didn't disclose things on the questionnaire. Some people, they just don't understand how federal defense works. I mean, the jurors are going to hear that she was running these businesses and selling what leads to people that have already been duped once. And the other problem is, frankly, is the prosecutors that prosecute these cases in that district are very good at doing telemarketing cases, where defense attorneys don't always get the same type of practice as defending them, because a lot of them plea out because of the penalties that they're facing. So it's hard to say, I'm a specialist in telemarketing fraud defense, because a lot of times the government will make a deal. They'll drop the mandatory minimum, which is the aggravated identity theft, where it's 2 years consecutive to any sentence. They'll drop that if you plea out the case. So then there's no mandatory. So the judge has discretion to go way down on the guidelines. And that's how a lot of those cases are resolved. So when they go to trial, they don't drop the aggravated identity theft.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. So that's why a lot of people are just naive. They believe in the American trial dream, and they don't want to objectively look at the evidence.
Well, that's what I have 2 questions for you. One, we have Kristen Miller in here, and she said that she lives close to the Southern District of New York. Will that be a court will she be able to go see this court case play out? Probably not, because of the pandemic, right?
No. Every courtroom in the United States is public. To Jen Shaw's judge's credit, he's allowed a call in on every hearing. In fact, I had dealt with the Southern District of New York press office, complaining that and they actually always gave me they always made sure there was public access for this case. But like the Maxwell trial, there was no public access. It's terrible when there's no public access and there's a pandemic. But yes, the answer is there'll be public seats in every day. This person can go to the courtroom and watch for sure. And if there's public access, we'll be live covering the trial. If there's no public access, then there's what's called a backup room. If there's limited public access, they take an overflow courtroom where you could sit in that courtroom and watch the trial on a live feed. That's what they did in the Avenatti trial in Orange County. And it was great. You could sit in this room by yourself and just watch the trial. So you can talk, which is why it's great, the overflow room. You don't have to be quiet. Where in the courtroom, obviously, you can't say a word. You have to sit there. So there'll be something like that. And if there's an overflow, then we'll cover it through the overflow room. I'll have somebody in the courtroom watching the trial and providing the summary of what's going on.
Got it. And then my last question for you, because we are at 46 minutes and I respect your time. Now with all of these people flipping and, you know, Stuart taking a plea and other people taking pleas, if Jen at this point still saying that she's not guilty, if she goes to court, goes through trial and they find her guilty, if you had to guess, what kind of time are we looking at for Jen at this point?
Well, with all the enhancements, I mean, she's really, unfortunately for her, looking at 15 to 17 years because there's just too many victims. There's too many enhancements. And that's why people don't roll the dice on telemarketing cases, because you really get hammered. The judge may cut her a little bit of a break because she doesn't have any prior record. And I think that, I mean, in some of the most egregious cases I've seen, you know, they do 120 months. But if she testifies, Adam, and is not truthful and gets annihilated on the witness stand and is not shamazing, I think what's going to happen is the judge may ratchet up her sentence because it's called obstruction. The problem is, I just don't understand what's really going on here. You have someone that's a celebrity client that everybody's jumped ship to testify against, and really she probably does have to testify, but it's not going to be like where you could be on the witness stand and the prosecutor asks a good question and you say, Judge, can we do a retake? Let's just do a retake. You know, where you stop spinning the reel. We just need to recut this. It's not going to be like when you actually film non-scripted television. You understand that they redo those scenes all the time. It's not like it's just live and they never stop it. They could stop a scene and redo them. It's not always rolling if they need to, where when she's on the witness stand, you have to answer the question. It's not like she could just go off and throw a tantrum. Does that make sense to you? Like,
absolutely.
Yeah. So if you don't answer the question, what happens is, people need to realize this. The judge strikes your answer and then says to you, it should say, Miss Shaw, you need to answer the question responsibly. Okay, I sustained the objection. Your answer was non-responsive. And these lawyers that are asking the questions, we only ask, I want to tell all the viewers a little trick. Is everybody ready? I never ask a question I don't know the answer to.
That's what my dad always says.
Yeah, okay, your dad's smart. So everyone should realize it's like a trial is like the ultimate movie, because we all know the answers. You could not answer the question that I have the answer to, but then I'm going to pull up a document that's going to impeach you. So it's all done in advance. It's not like I just show up and I say, you know, let me just kind of wordsmith this thing like Perry Mason, because otherwise everybody's going to get so bored. The judge is going to get really mad, and I'm not going to move my cross along. So I write out all 200 questions with each answer and where the authority is for the answer. That's a good cross. Now, if it's like a criminal hearing, that's like a live hearing, you don't always need to do that. But in a trial, and you got 12 people waiting in a pandemic, the judge is not going to let you go, let me fumble through my notes. You got to keep asking questions. And there's question and answer, and you don't get to do a speech in federal court. If you start talking, the judge cuts you off and says, no speech, counsel, ask your next question. That's how it works. So It's just question, answer, question, answer. And so what people don't realize is the only way to do that effectively is you need to have a prepared cross. So Jen's not going to be able to deviate. And then, of course, it is a show to convince the jury who's right. So you're not going to ask all the favorable questions to Jennifer Shaw in cross, and then she may want to try to fix her answer, but you're going to tell her, no, wait. That's what your lawyer gets to do. You just need to answer my question. And on cross, the government gets to ask what's called leading questions, like, isn't it true, Ms. Shaw, that you paid for this Wyoming corporation? Yes or no? And then if she tries to talk about something else, the judge will cut her off and say, Ms. Shaw, I don't want to correct you in front of the jury, but you need to answer the question that's asked. And she'll say, sorry, judge, if she's smart. And then it'll just be like that. And it'll be like, walking your dog. After you pull the leash a couple times lightly, they sort of walk with you. It's the same thing on cross. You don't need to, as the lawyer, correct the witness. The judge is going to do that for you. All you have to do is say, I'm objecting. The answer was non-responsive, move to strike. And it's nice and calm. And the witness will get so conditioned to just answering your questions that after a couple objections that are sustained, the process will just play out. And so I think that's difficult for someone that's never had that done to them before. That's why I think it's complicated when you have talent like this, Adam. It's complicated.
Jeez. Okay. All right. There's a lot happening. Okay.
A lot.
Ronald, I wish we had more time with you, and definitely we'll have to have you back. I know that you said you had 45 minutes and we're 50.
Yeah, I just want to tell you one thing, though. Claire Muchai asked a question about will Jen Shaw forced to be paid back the victims' money she allegedly robbed them of. I know she didn't use force or violence to take the money, but she defrauded them. It wasn't a robbery, but just to be technical. Yes, of course, if she's convicted, she's going to have to pay restitution. And I posted about this on @Ronald Richards. I posted the new restitution orders for all the other people that have been sentenced. And if you see, they're joint and several. So she's going to be tied in, if she gets convicted, to all those other orders. Everyone should know that. So they can collect just against her, and they don't need to go after the other defendants that don't have any money.
Oh.
All right.
Guys,
thanks again, Adam.
No, I mean, listen, again, Ronald, as we get closer to the court date, we'll have to have you back on. We always appreciate your time, and we know you're super busy. We're about to go on in 5 minutes on Down with Jason, so we'll be right back. But Ronald Richards, thank you so much. If you guys are not following Ronald Richards on Twitter, you need to go follow him. I'm attaching it to the description of this video. It's @Ronald Richards. Make sure you go follow. Ronald, thank you so much.
My pleasure, guys. Everyone have a great weekend. Thank you.
Happy Friday. All right. Guys, I pinned it in the live chat. So there's over 700 people in the room right now. Click the link in the live chat. Jason and I are going live in 5 minutes to recap the Real Housewives of Miami. So that's going to be amazing. Hopefully you guys can join us. I know there's 700 people in here. So you guys better continue the party. Bring it over. You guys want some moments with Jason and I? We go back and forth. We banter. Sometimes you guys like it. Sometimes you don't. I don't know. But it's going to be a great show. So I'll see you in 5 minutes. Guys, thank you so much to our mods, our super chats, super stickers. Thank you to everyone in the live chat. You're the best. We appreciate you. And most importantly, thank you to Ronald Richards for giving us his time. I hope you guys enjoyed this as much as I did. I'll see you in a couple minutes over on Down with Jason. Over there. All right, guys.